Welcome back to another episode of Carbs and Mirrors. I'm Alicia, your sister, your host, your fellow journey partner. Together, we are learning to redefine what healthy and beautiful looks and feels like without any shame, any blame, any guilt, or judgment. Are you like me and you get confused and occasionally frustrated on trying to understand all the information out there on what exactly is a carbohydrate without all of the technical and fancy science behind it? Well, on today's episode, I want to share a bit about what I've been able to find out on what the lowdown is of exactly what a carbohydrate is and why we need it, and which ones we should embrace more and which ones we should try to minimize. What exactly are carbs? So, carbs are a nutritive component. It's also known as a macronutrient. I'm sure we've heard this term before, and really what it just means is it's a large nutrient, and that as opposed to micronutrients that are small and hard to see with the eye. And so these are usually found in foods and drinks that the body needs for energy. So there are two types of carbs. The first kind is simple carbohydrates and can also sometimes be referred to as refined carbs. So these ones are actually easily broken down into blood sugar. The second type is complex carbohydrates. Now, these are the ones that are harder to break down into blood sugar because they are often wrapped in fiber. So simple carbohydrates breaks down easy into blood sugar. Complex carbohydrates are harder to break down because they're wrapped in fiber. So an example of simple carbs are the ones that I think of that are already sugar, right? For example, like honey or maple syrup or the table sugar we use in baking or that we add to our coffee or tea in the mornings. They can also be jams, soft drinks, candies. I think you get the idea. For complex carbs, though, as the name implies, they are more complex because they can be found in a wide variety of foods. Now, this is the category I think that gets people confused because it contains green vegetables, it contains fruit, whole grains, rice, wheat, seeds, nuts, starchy vegetables, beans, lentils, legumes. So I think simple carbs are easier to navigate, right? I think intuitively we know that these carbs should be minimized or used sparingly because they just don't add any nutritional value to our bodies for it to perform optimally. Now, to be clear, as a side note, I want you to know that my philosophy and lifestyle choice now, which has been working for the last 2 years and has helped me keep the excess weight off, is to not eliminate or restrict certain foods. I'll say that again. It's not to eliminate or restrict certain foods. So that includes simple carbohydrates as well as complex carbohydrates. Now, I know for myself, I've come to realize that the more I impose restrictions or eliminate something from my day to day, the more I think about it, the more energy I focus on it. I actually get to the point where I obsess about it until I can get my hands on it, right? So, for example, every year I would do this group challenge to eliminate a food group. And my weakness is chips. So I love chips. I would marry chips if I could. Kidding, but kind of not. So that's how much I love chips. So for this challenge, because we're always asked to like pick something that we are really drawn to, something that we really love. And so for me, that's chips. So I always choose to eliminate chips for the 90 days. But during the whole challenge in that, I have to be honest, I kept thinking about chips. I kept dreaming about which flavor I was going to buy when I can finally have it. I would even envision myself placing that yummy, crispy chip into my mouth. And what ended up happening was, after the challenge was done and I proved to myself that I was able to eliminate it, I would go out and reward myself with a bag of chips. But more often than not, I wouldn't buy a small bag, the snack pack size that you might put into your kiddo's lunch bag. No, I end up buying the family size bag. Actually, the Costco size bag. And I end up eating way too much, way more than I would have if I had just kept going and that, right? And not eliminated it or removed it at all. In the end, in that, I actually do more harm to myself than good whenever I deprive or eliminate something. In general, this is what I believe to be wrong with our dieting culture and has actually resulted in the whole yo-yoing of diets and just people eliminating and losing the weight, but then end up putting back more on because you end up doing what I did. You obsess about it and then you end up eating more than you would have if you had just allowed it to be part of your lifestyle. So, I don't know if you can relate or not, but that's been the cycle of dieting for me. So, back to carbs. As you can see, the complex carbs actually contains a lot of foods that are healthy and necessary for our body's daily functions and for us to thrive and to be our very best. Because carbohydrates are vital for our energy that we need in order to move, in order to, for our brain functions, all those things and that, we need to choose the right ones to help fuel our bodies. So as a rule of thumb, I just would suggest trying to stick with the ones that are wrapped in fiber, right? Like if we think of that definition in that, that really helps in that in order to make choosing which carbohydrates are more beneficial for our bodies is to think of it being wrapped in fiber. And these would be like the leafy greens, the herbs, the beans, the seeds, the nuts, the lentils. And the reason being is these carbs are great for elongating and not spiking our blood sugar level. Now, a really great resource is a book called Body Love by Lyne Rebecca. She goes into a ton of detail and depth on spiking and plummeting of blood sugar levels and just even on insulin resistance and hormone balancing issues. Now, today we don't have time to talk about all that, but I think in a future episode, I think it's probably important for us to dive deeper into this because it does play a large factor in how we can fully embrace food and understand how to balance our blood sugar levels. But for today, I really wanted to just give us a foundation level of understanding of what carbs are and which ones are good for us and why is it vital for us to have carbs in our food choices, right? It's also why you have given yourself permission to eat carbs again, as we talked about in episode 1. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about and you haven't watched that episode, head back into the channel and catch it in there. But yes, we made a promise to ourselves and we've given ourselves permission to eat carbs again. So ultimately, what I believe and hope you will also is in order for us to redefine healthy and get to a place where we are no longer harming ourselves with our words, our thoughts, and our actions, is we need to embrace food freedom. I love that word. Such a good term in that, because it is empowering and it just has each of us taking back control with our food choices. So no more restricting, no more eliminating. And so that is something I hope for all of us. Now, there is one more thing I just want to briefly mention, and that is bio-individuality. And what that means is what works for one person might not work for another, right? This is because we are each biologically unique and individual based on our genetic makeup, because of our different cultures, our different heritage, our different family of origins, and just even the combining of our genes, and that like your system is different from your mom and different from your dad, because you have genetic makeup from both of them that is different in how it's been combined in that. And so I want you to also take that into consideration when you are choosing foods to eat, right? I want you to embrace this unique factor that is part of who you are. And when you're making these choices, to just not be discouraged if something works for somebody else in your family or works for somebody else in your friend group, and that's the reason, is because you are uniquely made and you have unique biological genes in you. So really embrace that. One of the best ways that I know how to do this is to simply try all kinds of food, right? This is the only way we kind of know how to decide if something works for me or something doesn't work for me. So your action for this episode is to be curious and to try a wide variety of different carbs, and to take notice if there are any reactions that your body has. Anything from bloating or upset stomach, inflammation, aches and pains, even like skin blemishes, anything that's just out of the ordinary, I want you to take notice of. I'd love for you to keep a journal, right? Because that's one of the best ways to really keep track of the different things you're trying and what kind of reactions are you experiencing. If you have no reactions, that's amazing. The other piece that I'd love for you to also put into your journal is, how are you feeling when you eat that particular carb? I think that's one of the emotions that we tend to overlook. And so just keep a record of, how does that food make you feel? Well, friends, that's all the time we have for this episode of Carbs and Mirrors. I hope you were able to glean a few nuggets and just have a better understanding of what carbs are and why they must be a part of our daily lifestyle. Right? I want us to be able to finally stop saying we don't eat carbs, because we should and we must eat them, because we now know that they're vital for us to have energy. And just a reminder, as I am not a healthcare practitioner, I merely share ideas and concepts and my personal experience in these videos. And so if you have any specific needs or concerns or questions, please always remember to consult a professional healthcare practitioner. So until next time, remember, I am cheering you on because I believe in you. Now, if you enjoyed today's content, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to like, comment, and share this episode with a friend who might need to hear today's talk. Also, while you're in the channel, don't forget to check out all the other amazing speakers who share their knowledge and their hearts with you. To connect with me personally and to keep the conversation going, or simply to find out more about my upcoming workshop offerings and retreats, you can find me on Instagram at ms.alicia.ha, or send me an email at carbsandmirrors, all one word, at gmail.com. Now, if you missed any of those details, you can find them all written out in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to hang out with you on another episode of Carbs and Mirrors. Take care.